Feeling guilty is not the same thing as being guilty. Guilty is when you've done something wrong. Choosing to leave something or to end something because it no longer is in resonance there's nothing wrong about that. Absolutely nothing wrong about that. So feeling guilty is not the same as being guilty of an infraction. Feeling someone else's disappointment is not the same as causing harm. Should I choose to leave either of these two things I got going on right now, it's not going to cause harm to anyone.
Welcome to Intuition, Your Joy Compass. This is the podcast where intuition gets embodied and joy leads the way. This is where we integrate your humanness and your soul. They don't have to compete and they don't have to work against each other. Your soul comes in with joy. Your human self wants to learn joy. It just makes sense to merge them. I'm Vicki Baird, your intuitive guide, and also your wisdom-led mindset coach. And I want to bring the truth that you do not have to transcend your human experience to feel lit up and to feel aligned. You need to integrate it. And that is what we will do here.
Hi, thank you for joining me for this episode. The soundtrack you hear in the background are the birds in the neighborhood, the wind chimes over my head, probably a crazy dog chasing bees because he does not realize that's not going to end well, and whatever may happen in the neighborhood because it is absolutely gorgeous outside. And it's one of those days where it's warmer outside than it is in my house. And as I record this in the end of May, I'm not turning my heat back on to be warm, nor sitting like an Eskimo because this winter was long enough. So outside in the trees, looking at my wooded backyard. Yes, I'm thinking that I need to mow, but that'll happen. Today, what we're talking about is how to leave cleanly without leaving yourself. Sometimes in our growth process, I really believe that we're here to learn how not to stay, how to leave with love, clarity, self-respect. Because there comes a point in our healing and in our growth where the lesson is no longer how to stay, fix, prove, endure, or over-explain. The learning becomes how to leave cleanly without leaving yourself. So often we'll talk about commitment, loyalty, showing up, resilience. Oh, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said you're so resilient, when I learned to resent that word, we talk about all those things, but we don't always talk about the wisdom of recognizing when something is complete, when it no longer lights you up, when you have learned what you can learn, you have given what you can give, and you've decided that this just no longer aligns for me. And leaving can feel uncomfortable, whether that's a relationship, a job, hey, going no contact with your family, a book club, a volunteer gig, any of the, maybe you joined a mom's group and you're like, this is not working for me anymore. Or you joined a gym and they changed it up and you're like, this vibe is no longer resonating with me, so I need to peace out, Girl Scout. It can feel uncomfortable, and not because it's wrong, but because many of us were taught to equate discomfort with wrongdoing. So if you're feeling any kind of discomfort, well, you must be the one doing something wrong. You must be the person being self-centered, or you're just not trying hard enough. And, you can fill in any of the other lines that you've been taught. But this conversation is about discernment, not avoidance. We all have within us an avoider to different degrees because of our personalities. And we need to be aware of that. But once you have discernment in place as your practice, you don't feel obligated to avoid any longer. You want to look at what's going on. And it's very important that we learn how to know, and it is a learning because we perhaps learned other ways or were taught other ways, when something no longer resonates. And then how we can exit without regret or guilt coming in. I've often said that guilt is a wasted emotion. That doesn't mean that we are without it. I mean, most of us were taught on some level to feel guilty about how we acted or what we did or the choices we made. And if that was towards looking out for yourself or speaking up for yourself and you were told that's not okay, it can be incredibly challenging to learn how to navigate and to be in a different way. We all have patterns and we have habits. And I know that the brain does not like to learn a new habit. It does not like to put in a new pattern into place until it's recognized that the old patterns aren't working. And it also doesn't like to let go of patterns until it has a plan or a new one in place. So this is why neuropathway work is important in your healing or in your expansion, because if we don't take into consideration our brains, then we can kumbaya it all you want. You're not going to shift anything. So some of the patterns that you may experience is, maybe you stayed because something is quote unquote good or good enough. It's fine. Whenever anybody says fine, it reminds me that there may not be words in describing emotions when someone says fine. Perhaps staying in a pattern because someone invited us in, that person wanted to date us, so it must be okay. Or in my case, I joined a book club because I've always wanted to be part of one and am realizing that I don't really love the idea of reading to a deadline or reading to the next meeting. And there's absolutely no pressure in this book club. They are the loveliest women that you would want to be in. It's just where I am currently. And yeah, part of the reason that this topic came up. Maybe we stay because we don't want to be rude. And that could be you stay at a party and you're like, I really, really want to be home in my sweatpants on the couch, staring off into space or watching HGTV or reading a book. And you just stay because you don't want to appear rude or you don't want to disappoint whoever it is that invited you there, or because you've confused guilt with responsibility. Like you have a responsibility to stay when maybe in fact you're feeling guilty because you'd really like to choose yourself in this moment and you are utterly done being with people or tired. You're absolutely tired. Because sometimes we stay past a point of alignment because we're also trying to manage other people's emotions. And that's not cool, people. We are not in charge of other people's emotions. You are absolutely in charge of your own. It's one of the few things we're actually in charge of in this lifetime, or that we can control in this lifetime. Everything else is unknown. And as a result of energy put in, sometimes we stay because we have put other people or places on a pedestal. Maybe you stayed in this position because you know that the company is respected in the industry and you'd be a fool to leave it, even though everything within you is saying, pack up your desk. There are other opportunities that you'd like to explore, and you'll be absolutely brilliant in your life because you have explored them. And sometimes we stay because the idea of leaving or having that conversation makes us confront old wounds or what someone may have said to you. Am I flaky? Am I ungrateful? Am I not enough? Like, my goodness, these people invited me in and now I'm turning it away. It's a lot to consider, and one of the things that I encourage in myself and in my coaching is if there's not a detriment to you in staying, that you use whatever the leaving is as a way to learn more about yourself and a way to respect relationships and understand what is the gift, the opportunity, the possibility here. And is it possible that I can learn that this experience is causing conflict within me and that leads to self-abandonment? So paying attention and being you can be grateful for something and still leave it. You can absolutely love a person and still break up with them. You can want the best for an organization and no longer be on their board. There's duality exists and it's beautiful. And for most of us, we have that happening on in every breath. Left brain, right brain, up, down, high level, low level. And what I'd love to do is encourage each person to recognize when you're staying to the detriment of yourself. And it doesn't have to be overtly angry or not serving. It can simply be because you feel you don't align with it any longer. And it takes courage. It absolutely takes courage to be willing to say, this is not what I want. One of the things I admire most about my partner's sister is she is very clear about that. She has left plays that we paid decent money to see the show if it didn't work for her, concerts, events. She's just left. And I have learned a lot by witnessing that in her, and I really appreciate I need to say that to her. I'm saying it now, but I need to tell her that as well, because it has helped me immensely in especially this year, which has been a year of releasing relationships or obligations, well, things I made an obligation, to be fair. Other people didn't make it an obligation, I did. But to releasing things that are no longer fun, that are no longer providing a solid direction in my career and are not leaving time for me to do what I'm doing now, which is sitting in my backyard, enjoying the beautiful weather, talking to you, and then working on a piece of furniture that I'm stripping and learning how to redo. Things like that, where we're very present in our lives, take time. And it's the one thing we can't get back. And I'm really feeling the more and more that I am on this planet, it's important that we dedicate our time to what lights us up and how we can serve then. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, a book club that I joined, and I thoroughly enjoy the women. So smart, so funny, dynamic, caring, and you could see where that could lead to, and has, if I'm being honest, led to some question within myself of, geez, are you never happy? You wanted to be in one, you're reading more now than you've read in decades, and yet it's not vibing for you. And the truth is, it's not. And it's has nothing to do with them, actually. And this is why thought I need to do a podcast on this, because it has nothing to do with them. But if I don't pay attention to how I feel, I'm going to abandon myself. And then I know me, I will find a reason not to go. I will resent having to read the books. Well, I don't have to read the books, but I'll resent the suggestion. I mean, why would you be in a book club if you're not going to read the books? And it's something that I have had many conversations on many walks with myself or drives. And I have realized that at least right now, you know how they say in this season? Well, I am very clear that this season, this spring, summer season, I am only going to do things that I thoroughly enjoy doing. Thankfully, I love my work, so that doesn't enter into this. But I want to fully live in my life. And if I'm feeling like this is what I've realized is if I'm feeling like there's homework due or I'm not living up to whatever I could bring to this book club. I did suggest a book, The Violin Conspiracy. I found it lovely, absolutely enjoyed it. I was sick, so I couldn't go to the discussion on it, but some of the feedback I heard was some people really didn't like it, and that's the beauty of being in a group like this. You can have discussions. You could say, "No, I didn't finish reading it." But if you want a good book about growing up in some adverse conditions and still being brilliant in your own life, I highly recommend it. But what I've realized is that I could avoid it and I could just not go to the meetings, or I can honor the fact that I was invited into this already established group and I was given the opportunity to leave my house, to drive an hour and to have some wonderful meals. And I'm grateful for that. And like I said, I have been reading more than I have in decades. And yet I'm reading things that I would not have chosen. I would not have chosen to read the books, the other books that we have read. And my time is so precious that if I can have that moment to get lost in a book, especially in fiction, I want to really get lost in it. I don't want to read it for the sake of reading it. So the discomfort for me has been initially in what felt like turning down this lovely invitation to join them. And then I realized an invitation is not a debt. Like, I don't owe them anything for the invitation. I have shown up, had some great discussions, and will stay through this book that we just read called Buckeye, which honestly could have been 200 pages shorter. And because I want to be part of it, there's also a medium in the book, so I feel like I have to show up and represent. But they probably don't say that anymore, do they? But recognizing that an invitation is not a debt. It is just that. It's an opportunity. If you have an invitation to interview for a job, if you have an invitation to dinner, there's not a debt created that you must, in return, invite somebody to dinner. I mean, that might be manners if you enjoyed the time together, but it's simply that. It's an opportunity. And this is where we don't take care of other people's feelings. I have no place presuming what other people might feel as a result of me no longer attending the book club at this time. I'm happy to say it's on pause, but in this season, literally, I'm going to be hiking. I'm not going to be cramming in a book. And I feel like that's also respect to the authors too. So I can appreciate the richness, the goodness, is that a word? Goodness of this space without forcing myself to remain in it. And I will do that. I'll go to the next one and just let them know that I got to take a pause, because it's not about rejecting the people. It's simply declining this type of connection in this moment because it just doesn't fit where I am in my life. And staying for the meeting because I want to represent and hear what if they have questions about mediumship, I'd be happy to answer that too. I also felt like this was discernment. I didn't have to say, okay, this book did not do it for me. Although I will say his character development is lovely, but it just didn't do it for me. I could have just not gone. But the delay that I gave myself in not doing that and in completing the book, which I finished this morning, it's clean because it's coming from clarity. And I'm not postponing a truth. I already know this, that this is where I am now. And it when a when a closing or when a putting it on a pause, whatever it ends up being, is said with clarity and with kindness, all parties can benefit from that. So, hey, if you're gonna break up with somebody, please do it clean, do it kind. Don't point out what's not working first. I mean, if you wanna have that discussion, that's great. But keep in mind that delaying something because you're avoiding it is only going to lead to resentment and anger and frustration. And how many times are you going to play that conversation in your head? Once you make a decision and you are able to be clear what your point of view is, knowing what you know, it will be honorable for everyone. And there's a wisdom that is inside of all of us that will let us know when something doesn't line up. If you listen to your body, I promise you, it will let you know. Everyone feels it in a different place. My stomach tends to get tight first, and then I'll have an awareness that, there's a discourse happening within me that doesn't feel right. And if it's really bad and I'm not listening to it, I will actually lean into more of the lower frequency behaviors. So, maybe I'll not shut down gossip as soon as it starts, or I'll just avoid somebody rather than answering their text or their call. My body always tells me, and I promise you, your body tells you before your brain does, because the left brain is about survival, and it's going to kinda tuck and roll, and it's going to maybe raise your anxiousness level if you're feeling more anxious lately. Look at your caffeine level, but also, what are you not listening to? What aren't you paying attention to? Because there's something in there that's trying to say, "Hello, hello, you, can we speak?" Because you are a giant divining rod, you beautiful human, you. With this soul that's vibrating so loud that it's trying to get your attention, that something is not lined up here. And oftentimes there's a pressure to match energy, and smooth things over, explain, overmanage, even belong by contorting. I saw this most recently in a place that I've been volunteering. I saw it in myself, and whew, that was a rough coming home moment because I realized that I was matching energy that was a lower frequency, and I do not say that out of superiority or out of an elitism. I say it as a resonance. So when people are complaining, whining, uh, bitching, gossiping, that's a low frequency, and it's one that I consciously shift and avoid. That I will allow myself to avoid because there's nothing good that can come from it. But when you realize that you feel a pressure to match the energy in the room, and if that energy is not bringing you up and it's not asking to be out of compassion and love and humor, then you can be sure your body's trying to talk to you. It's trying to say, hey, 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 you have done so much work learning who you are, elevating who you are. You do not want to go into this lower frequency. Your body will recognize misalignment before your mind is willing to admit it. Okay? Your body, it as this big divining rod and magnet, it will recognize that something is misaligned before your brain is willing to admit it, because in your brain's defense, it's there to keep you alive. Your left brain is there to keep you alive, and it's going to point out that You don't wanna stir the boat. Like, you don't want to be, um, bringing up conversations that others might not like. Trisha Yearwood has a new song out called "Fearless." Ugh, listen to it. It's even if you're not a country music fan, listen to it. It is brilliant, especially if you're like myself and of a certain age, because it walks through the different types times in life where we may not have been able to recognize this within ourselves. So your body will let you know that this is no longer acceptable to you. So in the situation where I was volunteering, there was somebody who liked to complain a lot, and over the winter, it was cold, man. It was hard. Everything was frozen. And I said to her, "I will not do this. I will not do this anymore. We have to provide enough energy just to make it through a shift. I'm not going to participate in this." And yes, I did throw in the F-bomb a couple times because I was just done. But what had happened was I had allowed my energy to go lower because I've been there, right? Like, we can go back to a frequency that we are familiar with. And this is part of leaving without leaving yourself. You can leave those lower frequencies behind. It's a choice to be happy. Our brain is wired 3 to 1 to be stressed. 3 to 1. So it takes effort to be happy. It takes effort to have joy in your life. And it takes effort to say no thank you to that of which is no longer resonating. And that can be the gossiping, the like one of the things that some people around me tease me about is that I have no idea what's going on in the entertainment world. I have no idea. No pop culture references. I'm not going to get them. I don't care. I do not care one iota about that. If that's something you love, I'm happy you have that. I am not going to be the person to talk to about that because my conversations have to have a little bit more depth to them than what somebody in Hollywood is doing or wherever they are. So when we're leaving something, we're leaving a frequency that no longer resonates. And that might help you to take it out of the context of these people that I'm leaving, these people that I'm choosing not to see on, whatever frequency it was. Maybe you were in a softball club and it's just no longer there for you. Maybe it's not fun anymore because it's becoming more competitive and you're like, this is not what I signed up for. You would have left that lower frequency and now resonate in one that just bubbles faster. So standing water, boiling water, steam. This is what we're doing as humans and souls. We're expanding and raising our frequency in a way that more closely resonates with your soul. So when I lower my frequency, and even if I'm just standing there listening to someone complain about someone else, that to maintain that feeling of belonging, it's too expensive to me anymore. It's like a major hit to the credit card or something. It's too expensive. I don't carry debt, therefore, I am not gonna carry an emotional or a social debt. So, what part of your body lets you know that something is no longer in resonance? Where in your body do you feel the discourse when something feels off? And if you don't know as of the to this, well, that's exciting because the next time you're in a situation where you're like, this doesn't feel right, I would love for you to take 20 seconds and just feel where it is in your body. Scan your body, top to bottom, top to bottom. Some people, you'll notice your jaw gets tight. Your shoulders are tight. Like me, my stomach gets tight. Some people start to bounce. Like they'll literally tap that knee or the hands go. And that can be an indication too. It's not always a tightness. Sometimes It's a feeling of get me the hell out of here. So I don't believe we have to suffer as proof that I'm supposed to stay in something. Like, there's no award for suffering. There is no award when you croak for suffering. Can I just say that again? There is no award when you croak for suffering. None. None. The reward is being able to see how much did you live in love of your life and how much is the life that you're living now lined up with what feels right to you. We do not need to suffer to learn. Like, that whole idea of this is here in contrast to help you learn, true, very true, but we don't have to suffer. And that's one of the things that I'm using actually as I decide whether I stay in my volunteer role is I don't have to make any quick decisions. They're lovely. They're grateful for my help. It's just not aligned in where I am in life. The animals are, humans, maybe not. But I don't have to make it a big deal. I don't have to make it uncomfortable. I don't even have to speak of the things that are out of alignment with me because it's not going to go anywhere anyway. Because just like I'm not responsible for other people's emotions, no one is responsible for what I'm feeling or what I may be going through. So if you can figure out where is it in your body that you can tell the difference between lower frequency and the frequency that you're at right now. Remember, this is not superiority. Do not do that spiritual BS where, or let's say new age, because spiritual wouldn't do it. That new age BS where I have had more lifetimes or I am cleaner of energy. Don't do that BS. It literally is bullshit. But recognize what is no longer in resonance for you, but also realize you don't have to run out the back door. You do not have to leave it. One of the things that, like I said earlier, I don't believe that guilt is worthy of holding on to. However, it's a really good flare gun. It is a really good way to recognize that something would like to be paid attention to. So, and the energy of guilt will often come with storytelling. Like, I have to say, I'm the only one who can do this. I did have a volunteer say to me, because they were leaving, because their work schedule just got all kinds of kookabonkers. And they're like, I'm just afraid that my hours would negatively impact the animals. And I reminded them very clearly that this organization has existed very well for over 20 years. The animals are in excellent condition. They're taken care of, they're loved, they're respected. Your 3 hours a week is not what's doing that because you've only been here 6 months. So get off your pedestal. I didn't say that directly, but the connotation was there. So, because guilt is just an indication that you care, absolutely, but it can also be the sensation that maybe you're breaking an old pattern. Maybe this staying way longer than it is a benefit to you is something you've done over and over again. And this sensation of guilt is that flare gun saying, can we look at this? Are we breaking a pattern? Should we be happy dancing? Is this a celebration moment? It certainly is. And sometimes it appears because you are no longer prioritizing other people's needs above your own. And I will say to you, my flare gun went off with multi shots around this one because overgiving is a pattern of mine. And even giving where other people haven't asked me to give, simply because I saw a need and I had the capability to fill it, I would just fill it. And then that might get annoying. It does get annoying to some people, but prioritizing someone else's needs above my own, I did that a lot in my marriage, and even to the detriment of my marriage when I was volunteering then and not spending, days together. So sometimes that guilt is there because you are ending patterns. Do not sit in guilt. And if you say, I feel guilty, that's wonderful, but use it as a blinker. You need to change direction. Put on your blinker and change your direction. Because feeling guilty is not the same thing as being guilty. Guilty is when you've done something wrong. Choosing to leave something or to end something because it no longer is in resonance there's nothing wrong about that. Absolutely nothing wrong about that. So feeling guilty is not the same as being guilty of an infraction. Feeling someone else's disappointment is not the same as causing harm. Should I choose to leave either of these two things I got going on right now, it's not going to cause harm to anyone. And their disappointment, I'll be happy to speak of it, with them, about it. One of those, choose one of those. But it's causing them harm. I am not out here saving lives. So it's important to get our egos in check when it comes to that. And especially if this is dealing with adults, their emotional response is not, first of all, you can't command that. You can't expect to have it a certain way, but you also can't manage that because adults should be responsible for their emotions and able to communicate them kindly and clearly. You can say, I can care deeply and still leave. You could say, I don't need guilt to be gone before I move. You can take guilt with you. If it's still there, it's there. I mean, some people were raised in some teachings where guilt is paramount. It's like the number one thing that gets you up in the morning. But it can take a while to unwind that. And you could also make a statement of, I no longer let guilt dictate my movements. So once again, you feel it, you recognize that it's there, you say, oh, good, a flare gun, because that's letting me know that something's going on beneath the surface. Pay attention to what's going on beneath the surface, address it, and then move on. Because leaving cleanly means being honest without being cruel, being grateful without overcommitting. I mean, one of the things I did first was I just dialed back my hours, and this was necessary because work and business contracts have gotten very busy, and I'm thrilled with that. That is, how I pay my bills, but I love being of service, and volunteering didn't pay well. As a matter of fact, it was pretty expensive. But I could be grateful, and I am so grateful. I was there yesterday, and I just had the loveliest day. Loveliest day. Why? Because I'm not overcommitting. I'm not feeling responsible for something that's not mine. You can leave cleanly by not over-explaining to get permission. I've seen people do this where I actually worked with a client on this not too long ago because she is talented in her communication. She has words for days, and she wanted to over-explain. I said, what are you doing? You are losing the beauty of this moment by making a speech. You don't need to make a speech when a sentence will do. And practice the pause. Say something and let it pause, because it's challenging enough to stand in our power, to stand strong, and to stand in our knowing without weakening it by over-explaining. You can honor what's real and what's good about where you've been in relationship, in the job, in the committee you sat on, in the book club that you were part of, in the gym, whatever it is. You can honor what was amazing and what contributed to who you are as a whole, and you can still leave. And I have learned with myself that I want to leave before resentment corrodes, that it just absolutely tarnishes the experience that I had. And you know what? Free will, babe. We all have free will. So to leave cleanly, couple steps here that you could do. Acknowledge what was good. State what is true now. Do not defend your decision past the point of clarity. Let adults have their own reactions, please. And bless the space and move on. Because you know what? Love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes love means telling the truth without making the truth violent. Sometimes love means saying, I had this conversation with a friend over a decade ago. I truly believe we need a break from each other because neither one of us have anything to give this relationship right now. And I will not do snarky. So sometimes love means telling the truth without making it violent. And not every ending needs a full, deep truth. Sometimes it just is. Sometimes you don't need to share what the truth is. You don't have to tell other people, by the way. You do not have to make a social media post about it. The sacred truth can remain yours. You don't have to share what happened or what led you to that decision. So honoring, recognizing what helps you be the beautiful person you are in alignment. And it helps, I know, to connect you with your soul, because every one of us is here to listen to our souls and to align with that. And there may be deeper layers. There will be deeper layers underneath any type of leaving. And there's something very beautiful about not having to go into the story of it. So, how do you practice discernment? How do you recognize that you may need the discernment? How about some signs that you may be complete? Oh, that's a statement I love to use. Like, if it doesn't happen often in my life, but there have been a couple times where someone just wanted to belabor a point, and I will say, I am complete. And that's it. That's it. I am complete. And the conversation stops there. So, signs you may be complete. Are you staying out of obligation, not desire? I live by go authentically or don't go at all. So if you're staying out of obligation and not a true desire to be there, you are not serving the other person or organization or job. Do you keep rehearsing your exit internally? Do you keep visioning it, saying this is how it will go? If this one more thing happens, I'm out of here. That's a good sign things are complete. Does your body tighten before the activity even begins? This is something I was experiencing. I was not feeling like I was looking forward to going to the farm. And I'm like, no, 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 because I absolutely love it there. And if my life and my desire to focus on my home front is paramount, I do not have to make something the bad guy or the villain in order to have that happen. So, but I noticed it because my body was tightening or I wasn't getting up as early. So maybe your body tightens up and lets you know before you even start something. Are you loyal to the history of the thing, but not the current reality of it? This is big in relationships. Are you loyal to the fact that, well, I've known them. Oh, I hear this often. I have known them since childhood. Really? But if you met that adult today, would you guys be friends? Because if the answer is yes, we would, then you're just in a growing pattern right now, and maybe you need some conversations. But if you're like, "No," then hello, you are loyal to the history of it and not the current reality that is right there in front of you. And what if you can feel, you can intuit that there's nothing more to be learned by staying? That's what I mean by I am complete. If there's nothing more that you could learn about yourself by staying, then whatever it is may absolutely be complete. And if the honest next step is grief, because there will be some sort of grief when we end things, even when we do it in the highest frequency possible, if you can feel that, okay, if this was complete, the next step would be grief and not more effort, then there you are. You are complete. Oh. And if you feel drained rather than nourished, if you feel drained from participating in whatever you're doing rather than nourished, and this does include jobs. This does include our work. We do not have to feel drained by our work. There's days, there's, maybe tax season if you're an accountant, if you're a tax accountant. But in the majority of time, if you feel drained rather than nourished, then it's complete, my friend. And it doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like that conversation with my friend I had over a decade ago. This is the time where we both need some space. And sometimes it's just a quiet inner knowing that this chapter has given what it came to give. And I'm thankful for that. And time to maybe move on to a new book. So I went longer than I thought I would with this, but there's just so much experience and ways to choose a new way of doing things and to also pay attention to the nuances of what it is. So honoring where you are right now does not mean that you have to extend what you're participating in beyond its life force energy. You are allowed to appreciate what was offered without being obligated to receive it. So perhaps you have an invitation to another book club, and it's not about one book club or another. It's what is your commitment to this time in your life, Victoria? And you are completely allowed to leave cleanly without leaving yourself. So I would love for you to celebrate as you outgrow something. And I would love for you to be so honest with yourself that you're willing to see when something has run its course, or you've outgrown it, or it just feels like it no longer resonates. So may I ask you a couple questions? So where in your life are you staying out of obligation rather than resonance? What would it look like to leave cleanly, to leave gratefully, and to leave truthfully? And then I want to bring the body back in here. What does my body tell me when something is no longer aligned? So maybe contemplate those. I'm going to cleanly leave you now. And thank you for listening, and wish you all the best. And if you need help with transitions in your life, it's one of my specialties. I'm happy to help you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Joy Compass. I'm so grateful you are here. And I'd just like to leave you with what I would consider a listening agreement. By listening to this podcast, you agree to stay open, curious, and connected to your own intuition. You agree to take what resonates and throw out the rest into your body, into your breath, and into your lived experience. You agree to honor your humanity, trust your soul's voice, and let joy guide your next step. This is not passive listening, and this is not toxic positivity. This is conscious receiving. Thank you so much for being here.